Yeah, and yet it's scary to embrace that, right? Like I think people say, "Yeah, I love that, Rebecca. I'd love to negotiate my best life and be my true self. I love that, Graham. That sounds great." But it is scary to step out of a toxic situation. It's scary to step out and be different than your peers or the people around you. We want to belong. We want people to accept us also. So we have these competing desires. Operating in your true self is really the best gift you can give the world. I think honestly, you were designed a certain way strategically. I think God made you the way he made you strategically, and you're actually holding back the ability to do the greatest work you're meant to do in this world if you don't allow yourself to discover, or like I say, find yourself.
Welcome to another episode of Negotiate Your Best Life. It is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome a friend who has really accomplished so much in his life. And he has really gone from his story is so incredible, and he's going to share it with you. But he is where he is now is not where he's always been. And he's a TEDx speaker, a keynote speaker, seven-figure entrepreneur, best-selling author, all these amazing accolades, but he's not always been there. And now he's got a brand new book, which is Rebel, Find Yourself by Not Following the Crowd. And he's going to share how you can find your dream and follow your dream and step by step. And the Rebel is actually a framework. It actually, the REBEL actually stands for the 5-part framework, which is going to give you the exact steps to get where you want to go and discover your power and your uniqueness to design your life. But he's actually done it. This is what he does. So thank you, Graham Cochran, for being here. I'm so excited. This is going to be amazing. So thank you.
Oh, Rebecca, yeah, I'm pumped to have you. I know I had you on my show and had a wonderful conversation with you a few months back, so it's exciting to be on your show.
Yeah. So, but you haven't, I mean, you have an amazing, amazing bio, resume, CV, whatever you call it. But if people just look at that, they're going to be like, oh my God, I could never get there. But you weren't always there.
Yeah, I didn't expect to be here. I'll tell you, when I was 26, where I found myself, Rebecca, was with, I had my wife. We were married for a few years at that point. We just had our first daughter and we just bought our first house and we had just moved 1,000 miles away from home to a new state. And then we were in the middle of the global recession. It was 2009 and I lost two jobs in 10 months and I was 4 years removed from college, which college for me was kind of like I only did it because my parents made me go. I
Yeah.
wanted to be a rock star. That was my dream. And I talk about this in the book. I'm kind of rebellious by nature. I don't really do what people tell me to do, because there was, they were putting me in a box, and I felt like that wasn't who I was. And so here I am, 4 years removed from a dream that I always wanted dying, and didn't quite get the record deal that I wanted, floating around for 4 years with jobs that I wasn't a good fit at. Just trying to be a husband, provide, and then now I have a baby, now a mortgage, and I'm 26. We blew through our savings. We applied for food stamps. They call it SNAP. Now I was on food stamps for 18 months, like
Wow.
the most embarrassing season of my life. I never was one to want to ask for help. I had a job since I was 14. I always worked hard, and here I am needing government handouts, and it was humbling. And I kind of had this moment of, I didn't have time to think because I needed to provide, but also when I did think, I was like, what the heck am I doing with my life? Like, this is not how I imagined it going. I thought I'd be
Like,
famous or on my way, dying trying.
you're like, this is
And
not
I,
me. This is
this is
not
not
who
me.
this is not who I am.
No, it was depressing and it was embarrassing. That's probably the word that comes up for me the most, is like when people ask, "Hey, how's life in Florida?" We had just moved to Florida back then, and I was like, not great," And they're like, "Well, why did you move if you're going to lose your job?" I'm like, "I didn't plan to lose two jobs in 10 months. I mean, no one did during 2008, 2009. It was a rough time." But yeah, that's where I found myself, and that's the beginning of a slow climb out of that season where I experimented with doing something different, maybe doing something more in line with the way I'm wired, with the things I'm interested in, even though I had no clue if it was going to work out.
Yeah, and I think like there's so much shame, when you're in that place. I mean, I know for me, when I had, I had built this big law practice, and then right after that, I merged my practice a few years ago with a couple of other guys, and I started doing some entrepreneurial endeavors. And then the very first thing I did, or one of the first things, was I got into a business partnership with somebody who turned out to be a covert narcissist, didn't even do well. And then I felt bullied by this person, but it was a covert narcissist. And I didn't know that narcissists could be women. I didn't know about anything called a covert narcissist, but I I didn't speak up. I didn't say anything because this person turned out to be, I didn't know what to say, when the person was not doing the things that they were supposed to do. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to say anything. And I think when you're in all of that, shame is the word that
Mm.
keeps coming to mind for me, because I thought, I'm supposed to be powerful over here. I'm
Mm.
supposed to like, I, I know how to negotiate. I know how did I end up here?
Yeah.
How did I end up here? And you don't want to admit it to people.
Hmm. Yeah, especially if you're like me, where I want to project strength. I want to project like I know what I'm doing. Um, I took some risks moving my family 1,000 miles away from home, thinking Florida would be a good opportunity for me. It turned out to not be a good opportunity in the short term. It ended up being a great opportunity. I needed to lose a lot to build something different. But yeah, like I was embarrassed. I didn't, it was hard to talk to my family members, friends. Like I remember that first Christmas season after I lost my job is like October of '09. So that Christmas went back to Virginia where we were from, saw family. Hey, how's it going in Florida? I heard you lost the job. What are you doing? Are you applying for new jobs? And I remember the shame of like telling them, actually, I'm not applying for jobs. I'm actually going to start a blog. That's how I started. I started a blog in the music space. That was my first business, was in the music recording education space. I was teaching people how to record music. That was the skill I had. So I started to teach it online. I had a YouTube channel. I started all of that. And I was telling people sheepishly, I think I'm going to try to create content around audio recording. And they were like, you can imagine the look on their face, like, A, what does that mean? And B, how are you going to make money at that? And I didn't have good answers to either of those things. I just had this, I'm a person of faith, so I believe, God was speaking to me, but you call it still small voice, that intuitive voice of there was something you have knowledge, Graham. You should share it with other people, help them, and maybe you can build something out of that. I didn't know how to monetize it yet. I tried all the different ways, but that was the beginning of what ended up becoming my first business. But I didn't know it was going to work out. And I hated talking about it with people because it's nice to talk about it now because it all worked out in the rearview mirror. I feel
Oh
very
yeah.
comfortable talking about it now to you 15 years later. But in the middle of it, I was unsure of myself whether this is going to make sense. And then B, and I really wanted it to work because if it didn't work, I'd have to go back to something that wasn't a good fit for me. I'd have to go back to that life that was the prescribed life for me that wasn't a good fit for my skill set and personality. So yeah, it was shameful, embarrassing. Um, but I had my wife. She really believed in what I was doing. She was open to it. She was scared out of her mind like I was, but she knew me, and I think that's a big piece. Of she's like, I know you, and I know you're not going to survive another day in a corporate job or sitting at a cubicle with an oversized shirt and a goofy tie. This is not who you are. It's not who you are. So she's like, you either be unhappy there or we'll be broke here. And I'd rather be broke and happy than you be at a job and us be unhappy. So she was willing to go along for the ride.
Hey, at least you had somebody who was really supportive. I mean, a lot of times people don't. Um,
Yeah.
and so, I mean, and it's like people are always, willing to be a supportive once it all works out, right? I mean,
Yep.
same thing with me. It's like when I started on YouTube, people were like, oh, what are you doing over there? Like, like, okay. But now that I have this massive presence and I have all these courses and everything, oh, okay. Right. But at the beginning, it's like, aren't you still practicing law? What are you doing? It's like,
So Rebecca, you're a great example of what I write about in the book. You're a rebel, meaning everyone has a preconceived notion of the way things should go and the way people should be. And in your case specifically, okay, you're a lawyer. This is what a lawyer looks like. Here's the path. Here, I call that conformity. We're all going this way. Do it the way we're doing it. And when you go do something different, that's called to be your full, unique self, even if other people push back. People don't like rebels initially. They like them in the end. But like if you think about the rebels in history, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s, the Steve Jobs, the Jesus Christ, like all these people, they came around and challenged the norms of the day in a space or industry, and nobody liked them. They said, stop messing. This is not how we do things. This is not how we do things. But then, history looks back at them and says, wow, they're world changers. They were onto something. So it's really hard and scary to go your own way, whether it's a big move like a world-changing movement, or it's just, hey, I got to make a different decision for my family, or I got to take a different job, or we need to move here, or I'm going to pull my kids out of school and homeschool. There's going to be judgment all around whatever you do if it's not in line with what your culture, big or small around you, believes is right. But it's too exhausting to not be who you are. Soren Kierkegaard has that great line of the most common form of despair is not being who you are. Like that's haunting. And so it's exhausting and haunting when you're not your true self, but it's also scary and risky to go the way you want to go and do what you feel you need to do or try, because people will judge you hard. But when it works out, then they'll say, oh yeah, it makes so much sense. Oh, I love what you're doing. Or they may not ever like what you're doing. And you have to take that risk to live the life that you feel is more in aligned with the way you're designed. And that's what I'm trying to help people do.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I love the way this conversation is going, because one of the things that I always say is that becoming your true self, like, when you're dealing with somebody toxic, that's not who the true you is. The true you is actually speaking to you going, no, I'm meant for more than this. This is not okay.
Mm.
I know that there's something worthy inside of me that is meant for more, that is bigger than this. The authentic me is speaking, and I'm meant for more than this. Because if you didn't know that, you'd be fine with the way they were talking to you or treating you.
Right.
But you know that you're meant for more than that. And that's that true self, that authentic, higher, truer self, that soul self of you is saying, I know that I need to get away from this and be my unique higher self. There's never been another you ever in the history of people, and there never will be another you. That's
100%.
insane to me. That's God.
Yeah, and yet it's scary to embrace that, right? Like I think people say, "Yeah, I love that, Rebecca. I'd love to negotiate my best life and be my true self. I love that, Graham. That sounds great." But it is scary to step out of a toxic situation. It's scary to step out and be different than your peers or the people around you, because we want to belong. We want people to accept us also. So we have these competing desires, and there's nuances there, right? Like I'm not gonna just go do everything I want to do the way I want to do it, despite what my wife needs or my daughters need or whatever. But like operating in your true self is really the best gift you can give the world. I think honestly, you were designed a certain way strategically. I think God made you the way he made you strategically, and you're actually holding back the ability to do the greatest work you're meant to do in this world if you don't allow yourself to discover, or like I say, find yourself. You're never going to fully have all the impact you want or joy that you want in life unless you do a little bit of that deep work and fight. You have to fight for it, because very few people are in a situation where their friends or family or peers are going to be like, yeah, that sounds great. Just go be you. Everyone's going to either at a high level, like you're talking about a narcissist, all the way down to a subtle dig from a friend. Not everyone's going to fully embrace you discovering your true self until they see it. And then you might actually inspire other people to do the same, which is pretty cool.
Yes, totally. And honestly, sometimes one of the things that I say all the time is sometimes the biggest negotiation that you have to do to get out of it is with your own self in the morning for your own self-worth.
Yep. 100%.
I mean,
So,
your mind, your own mind is the biggest thing that you have to overcome.
oh yeah, I mean, you talk yourself out of it every single day. The way I think of it is like is there's two voices in your head. There's the loud default narrative, the inner story that you tell yourself every single day. And that could be different for everyone. It could be I'm not good enough, I don't have enough resources, it's too late for me, this is an impossible situation, blah blah blah. These are very normal. There's no shame in feeling this. Just know that this is like a voice in your head and it's very, very loud. But it's not the only voice. I believe there's a second voice, and that is, you could say it's God's voice, it's intuition, it's the voice of wisdom, but it's in there and it's the voice that knows what's best for you and wants to lead you. It might be a crazy adventure, but wants to give you insight and kind of can know what's coming around the corner. But it's always like the Bible describes it as a still small voice. It's very quiet. It's like a whisper and it won't ever turn up. Like the only way to hear it is to turn down the louder default inner story. And the only way to do that is to identify what is the inner story I'm telling myself and realize that you are telling yourself one. And so it's like trapping those thoughts, as Tim Ferriss says, like journaling is really powerful and starting to ask yourself some good questions. In the book, I take people through an inner story audit to kind of audit your thinking and go, what am I saying about myself? And go, wow, that's what I'm saying, or about the situation, and start to challenge that narrative with simple questions like, what else, if I think this might be true, and it might be true, maybe my situation is what it is, but what else could be as true, if not more true, than what I'm telling myself? And at least let yourself be curious, consider other options. And you start to quiet that inner story when you do some of this work. And what that allows you to do, Rebecca, is hear that still small voice, the inner voice that knows who you really are, who you want to be, and what you want to do. And you get some of that wisdom and insight. But it is a battle. And that's not a one-time event, to your point. It is an everyday renewing your mind, right? Like the book of Romans 12, it says, like, don't be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that word in the Greek means to renovate, like do a renovation in your house. Every day I got to do some demo of the old bad code in my brain and then build something new. And you have to do it every morning.
Yeah, I always say I can never leave my thoughts unsupervised.
I
Like,
love that.
yes, they're not allowed to go unsupervised. I have to like always be listening to some good audiobook, a podcast, a YouTube video, something, because otherwise, if they're left to their own devices, they go straight to, you know, bad places because our thoughts are not wired for success. They're not wired, they're wired for survival. I mean,
Yes.
we're wired for survival.
Yes.
So we have to constantly bring them to where we want them to go. And so I think also we have to shut off and cut off people who aren't going to support us in where we want to go as well. So I want to get into your 5-part rebel framework. And how did you even come to this? How did this come to you?
Yeah, so when I was writing this book, I was spending time with John Gordon.
Oh,
And John,
yeah, you
who's a
know,
mutual friend,
Catherine
I know
is
you
one of
love.
my best friends.
Yes,
I was just with
you
her
love the Gordons.
yesterday.
I love Catherine. Yep, she's a gem. And I was spending a day with John, and I was actually trying to like learn from the master. I was like, okay, Master Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, teach me, how do I become a world-class speaker like you? Like I'm thinking about the next 10 years, I want to do what you're doing. And so that's what I thought I was going to learn from him. And that day, his mind was more interested in what my next book was going to be. He's like, "Well, what's the message of your second book going to be?" And I had just been like 8 months removed from my first book coming out. Like we were talking about before we hit record, it's exhausting writing and promoting a book. It's sneaky exhausting, and so I was still tired from that. And I was like, "John, I have no idea what the next book is. I just published a book." But he was really interested. What's the message of the second book? And so that all to say, in that conversation, the idea of the language of rebel came out. He was asking me about my life story, and I was telling him my whole story and journey. He was like, "Bro," and this is why I always give John credit for the name. He says, "You're a rebel. Like you don't do what people tell you to do you?" And I remember thinking in that moment, Rebecca, rebel is not language I've ever used for myself, but it finally gave me a word that best describes how I have felt my whole life, which is not that I'm trying to be, I'm not the bad boy. I was never a rule breaker. So I never would have associated with that word because I have preconceived notions of what a rebel is. But I didn't realize that a rebel is just someone who's like, if everyone's going one way and you decide to go a different way, if that way is not healthy and you go the healthy way, you're actually being rebellious, right? Like it's rebellious to actually stay married these days because it's hard to do. It's rebellious to not be in debt to your eyeballs because it's rare and hard to do. It's like, so being a rebel isn't a bad thing. It's being a different thing, and not different for different sake. Our language was it's being who you really were designed to be. And so in that conversation, I was like reverse engineering my story. And I like to think in frameworks. And so I made it I was like, the next 48 hours, I'm going to think through what are the steps that the last 15 years of going from being on food stamps and being broke to being able to build a couple businesses and make an impact on YouTube and write books and all these cool things, change my family tree. What were the things that I had to do internally to figure out to fully show up as Graham? Like the way I put it is like letting the real Graham come out and play. Like it's taken me a decade and a half to let the real Graham come out and play. And I knew I wanted a framework, and it just slotted perfectly with the word rebel. And when I saw, I felt like there was about 5 phases. And so this is what I've been teaching clients, reverse engineering for myself. And it's really helpful because people might say, "Love it, got it, Graham. I want to find myself. How do I do it?" And for me, I have to have something concrete to take people through and take myself through to figure that out. And that's what this framework is.
Okay, very good. So I love that it came from John. We'll do a shout out to our mutual dear friend. Okay, so let's start with the R. What does R stand for?
The R stands for resolve, and specifically resolve to dream again. And this might sound like a weird place to start, but my theory is that dreaming, the language of desire, the things you dream or want of, dream of doing, dream of being, dream of having, those ambitions, those desires, those hopes, those wants, whatever language feels better. If dreaming is like a buzzword you don't like, my theory is that those dreams are giant clues as to the way we're wired. So it would be, some people think dreaming is foolish. I think it's foundational to who you are and figuring out who you
Oh,
are. So it actually would be
totally. It's
foolish.
almost like
Yeah,
your vision. Like if you don't have a GPS, where are you going?
exactly. Yeah, you gotta like, you're not going to be able to show up in the world as yourself if you don't even know what you dream about. And the problem with this is a lot of us stopped dreaming a long time ago. We
Yeah.
all are natural dreamers as kids. And the reason we stopped dreaming could be a lot of things. A lot of times it's because we had a dream die. Um, this is something I call the identity crisis intersection, Rebecca, and maybe this will resonate with someone listening right now, is we all have had a dream at some point, even if it was a long time ago. And that dream could be a career dream. It could be a relational dream, like I want to get married or I want to have a kid, or it could be a financial dream. I want to buy a house or pay off my debt or whatever it is. You have a dream, but then life smacks you in the face and that dream dies. And that could mean he walked out on you and now it's a divorce. It could mean you lost a child. It could mean the economy shifted and your business went bankrupt. It could mean that, you lost the house in the recession, like a lot of people did in 2008. Like whatever it is, the dream dies. For me, my rock star dream, I never quite got it. So the dream died because I just had to give up on it because I was running out of time. I needed to get a job to take care of my new wife and I wasn't getting a record deal and the opportunities were drying up and dream dies. Okay. What do you do now? At this point, I believe you're in what I call an identity crisis intersection. You've got a fork in the road, and I call it an identity crisis intersection because I think our identities are tied to our dreams. When our dream dies, part of us dies with it. That's why it
Mm-hmm.
hurts so much.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you admit it or not, it hurts. And so I don't think we're completely caught up in our dreams, although that can happen. But I think no matter what your dream, part of you is attached to it. And it should be. It's never this thing outside of you. That's why it feels so good when you realize a dream. That's why it hurts so bad when you lose a dream. And so it's a very tender spot. And this is where people have one of two choices when the dream dies. Choice one is you can conform. You can get back in line with everybody else and say, well, that was stupid to think that I could have a happy, healthy marriage. That was stupid to think that I could be a rock star. That was dumb to think that I could have a business that I actually like. You know what? I'm going to just be like everybody else and I'm done. I'm not going to dream again. That was embarrassing. Maybe dreams aren't for me. Maybe they're just for other people. That's what I did when I was 22 and the rock star dream died. I gave up on dreaming. I was like, that was stupid. I told everyone I was going to be a famous musician. Everyone kept asking me about it, and I was serious. I thought it was going to happen. I had mentors and people affirming this is possible for you. We see your talent, blah blah blah. So I was burned by dreaming. I said never again. I'm going to way lower my expectations for joy in life and try to be happy by, you know, a little bit of Netflix and funding my 401k. It's like really depressing if you think about it. But actually, that's what I
Ben and
tried to convince myself
Jerry's
of.
and no, I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a path you could take, and it's a natural path. Hey, all of us have dreams die, and all of us have to conform at some point. No shame, I did it for 4 or 5 years. But there is another choice when you're at that identity crisis intersection. That other choice is to dream again. You can actually dream again. And what that means is it might mean chase that same dream a second time, a third time, 100th time. It might mean, like me, discover a new version of your dream. Like I got into the music industry through a back door as a YouTuber and ended up meeting so many of my heroes and you know, influencing millions of people in the music industry, but as a YouTuber, not as a singer-songwriter with a traditional record deal. So it was this backwards version of my dream that I never would have considered, because when I was growing up, YouTube didn't exist. Right. So there's there's a version of your dream that you could dream again, but either way, you got to dream again, because dreaming is what keeps you young. It's what keeps you alive, but it's also what will point you back to like data points. Dreams are just data points as to who you are, what you value, how you're wired. It doesn't tell you everything. I don't think you're supposed to realize all your dreams. I don't think it's the point of it. I think the point of the exercises that we have in the book and doing your 50 dreams exercise is really to get some data on who Rebecca is, on who Graham is, so that as a 30,000 foot view, at least I have a better picture of what I value. And from there, we can start to zero in as we go through the framework. But it's the hardest, but yet most rewarding work you'll do is getting to that place of dreaming again. Because we all come from different burned backgrounds on dreaming, and we all have different experiences with it.
yeah. I think you just have to sometimes let go of, well, it's not fair. You know, kind of like that victim mentality sort of thing. I mean, I think sometimes you just have to go, okay, it happened and it sucks and it didn't go the way I wanted it to. Grieve it, and it's okay, you know, and acknowledge that you're grieving and acknowledge that it's horrible or whatever it is, but you can't do anything about the past. You have to
Well,
move
and the
forward.
alternative, you're right. And the alternative to dreaming again is just putting your head down and conforming and being like everybody else. And that's not going to make you happy. I mean,
Right.
how has that worked for you? Are you fulfilled by just giving up on your dreams? Like, no. It's might be safer. It might protect you from future disappointment. Like, Lord knows, I was scared out of my mind to start a new business, start a business, pursue something new, because what if this didn't work out, just like my rock star dream? Then I would be faced with another round of disappointment of chasing something else I wanted. And that's a scary proposition, whether that's chasing another relationship or trying a relationship again, whether it's trying to rebuild a business or whatever you dream about again. If you've been burned before, it is really scary, because, yeah, you might get disappointed. But the alternative is to live this safe, insulated life that is so unfulfilling. And so
Well,
it's void of risk, but
and
it's void of joy.
well, and a lot of times the safe risk isn't even safe. You
I
know,
know.
I mean, I think Jim Carrey was talking about how his father had chosen the safe route and didn't go after his dream of being a comedian, I think it was, or whatever it was. He chose the safe route of being an accountant or whatever it was. And then he was like 50 years old and was let go from that job. And so his safe route wasn't even safe.
Exactly. And that was me. Like, I was told by my guidance counselor at 17, like, you need to go to college. I wasn't going to go to college. I mean, I had this whole argument with her in the school. You need to go to college because that will let you get a good job, because in that way you can like provide for your family and have good benefits and have a great life. And I was like, no, I'm going to be a rock star. And so I chased the rock star dream. When that died and I had to go get a job, multiple jobs. And I was like, well, maybe she was right. Maybe the guidance counselor was right. And I was stupid and I should just play the safe route, until the recession came 4 years later and I lost 2 jobs in 10 months. To your point, I was like, well, okay, so the safe route wasn't very safe, was it? I had good jobs. I didn't like them, but at least I had them. But even those aren't guaranteed. So safety is an illusion, and also safety, it's never as fulfilling as the thrill of chasing after something that's meaningful to you. And that's so unique to you because it's not like there's a buffet line of what dreams you should choose from and those are your options. Like it is completely unique to you and your family and your makeup, but that's what's going to give you the motivation to take the risk if you're pursuing something that's meaningful to you. Like marriage is hard, right? I'm
It
sure you
is.
would agree.
I've
It
been
is
married 24
hard.
years. It's definitely the hard. I've been married 24 years, and I always say I've done high net worth divorce litigation. I've built two seven-figure businesses. I've done all these other things. Staying married is definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. Not that, I don't love my husband. It's just that it takes a lot of work to show up, communicate, stay present. You have to do a lot to it's like a bonsai tree, right? You're
Yep.
constantly um watering, pruning, paying attention, making sure you're doing all the things you need to do. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And so no one would look at that and say, yeah, I want to sign up for a lot of work. I want to sign up to Bonsai Tree, this guy, for the next 24 years, unless you thought it was something that was valuable to you and you wanted it in the end. You're willing to deal with the challenges of it. Like we don't start businesses or run our businesses or do YouTube or write books just be like out of like if you told me what it's going to take to write a book or be a YouTuber, like I'd be like, no, that's a lot of work. But because I desire the thing, the desire is stronger than the effort and the challenges and the pain I'm gonna have to go through. I'll pursue it. And that's why I can't tell someone what they should pursue and dream about. Because if it's not real for them, there it's not worth it. It's too much work. So you got to get into the dreaming again and that place of okay, it may not seem possible for me. I've lost a lot of hope, but what would it look like if I started to dream again? And that might not make your dream naturally come true, but it's the beginning, right? That's why it's step one. But it's such a beautiful place when I see people get out of these predetermined paths of, well, this is the way life is. Like, really? Says you? Like what if you could think a little differently? What if things could be different? I'm not saying it'll be easy, but if it could be, would you be interested in going down a different path? And that's, I think, what's going to get people into, oh, I could design life. I love the name of your show, Negotiate Your Best Life. Like, I love, like, you can, it does take negotiation with yourself and with others, but your best life is there. It's possible, but you have to decide what it is first and then make steps towards it. And no one else is going to do that for you.
No one else is going to do that for you. Yes, I always say no one is coming. No one is coming. People talk about narcissists all the time and how it's not fair and how are they getting away with it. Well, there's no narc police. They don't just show
Nope.
up in your living room going, hey, you can't do that. You can't say that. Right? Okay, so what's the E?
So if the R is the 30,000 foot view, resolving to dream again, the E takes it down on the ground. Let's establish the outcomes you want in life. Establish the outcomes. So now we get specific, right? I have a dream, but like, what does that look like in your life? And so, what I like to do is one of the exercises I like to take people through in the book and I do with clients is I call it the best 3 years of your life framework. And I stole this question from Rich Litvin, who's a brilliant coach. And I because it was the most helpful way for me to think about vision. So I found it valuable to me and I shared a lot. The idea being a lot of people have a 10-year vision, like 10-year goals. And to me, it's just way too far in the future to be that motivated to for a decade from now. It's possible, but so far in the future. Plus, I don't know what life's going to look like in 10 years. I'm going to be a totally different person. I'm totally different than I was 10 years ago. Whereas 1 year visions and goals are great for motivation, like the New Year's resolution, like, oh, I'm going to do this because it's so close. You can taste it, but it's very easy to fall off track and get discouraged. And people tend to, like Tony Robbins says, overestimate what they can do in a year. 3 years is kind of a magical number. So the question is like, Rebecca, you and I bump into each other 3 years from now. We're at a John Gordon event, or we're hanging out with Catherine and John, or we're somewhere. And I'm like, Rebecca, I haven't seen you in 3 years since we did that podcast together. How the heck are you? And you tell me, Graham, this has been the best 3 years of my life. And I said, that's amazing. Like, let's grab a coffee. Let's sit down. Tell me all about it. What's happened? Why has it been the best 3 years of your life? What would you be telling me about? What would have to be true for you to tell me straight in the face, Graham, it's been the best 3 years of my life? And there's two things that are happening here. One, three things. One, it's past tense. So it forces you to go to another place in your mind. I know you said you're about to talk with Mike Zeller after our conversation. He's so good at getting you to think outside of yourself and have create these new neural pathways. It's one of the things he's really great at. It forces you to think in past tense, which is different. Okay, it's happened. It's happened in the past. Two, it's open ended. You know, it could be anything. What would have to be true for you? It could be business related. That might come up for you. It might be relationship related. It's very different. So it lets you think big picture about your whole life because we get so myopic about the one problem we have or the big pain point that we forget sometimes what we really want out of all of life, big picture. So it gets you to think holistically. And three, the time frame is magic for me. 3 years is like it's not too far away in the future that I can't really visualize the kind of season of life I'll be in. Like I can tell you about the age my kids are going to be. It's close enough to my life that I'm probably going to be somewhat similar to how I am now. I can do a little bit of forecasting. It's not a complete guess, but at the same time, you and I both know, Rebecca, that we can do a lot of damage in 36 months in our lives. Like we can completely transform our body. We can completely transform a marriage. You can completely transform your business or your finances in 36 months. And so it's a great window of time to start to get specific about what would have to be true if it's been the best 3 years of your life. And that's going to tell you, and I like to think about six core areas of life specifically: your work, like what life looks like in your work or career, your finances, your time, how you spend your time, because that's a more valuable currency than your money, your relationships, your health, both physical and mental, and then your spirituality. Those are the six core areas of life I would start to maybe dream about. What would be true about all six of those areas 3 years from now for it to have been the best 3 years of your life? And that's going to give you, to your language, a GPS, like a very specific thing or outcome to start thinking about moving towards that's unique to you, that's based off of what you value. It might seem impossible now, but still we're not at the implementation phase yet. We're just at the clarity phase.
Mm. So, do you want to share what one thing that would be the best, make it the best 3 years of your life in 2027?
So I have a million things. I'll give you a couple. One would be uh, on the career side, I'm a New York Times best-selling author, and I'm an in-demand keynote speaker at, whatever my like rates that I want to have to be reality in 3 years, right? So a specific dollar amount, in-demand keynote speaker, and there might have some specific stages I want to be on. In the family side of things, what's going to be true is I've spent more time with my daughters in these last 3 years than I have in the previous 13 combined. And I spend a lot of time with them. My oldest is 15 now. So I'm thinking 3 years from now, she's going to be going off to college.
Mm.
So I'm going to look back and be like, I spent more time with Chloe than I ever did. I didn't get too busy when she left the house. Like I was actually more present than ever. I wasn't stressed about work. I wasn't actually trying to make a big name for myself. I just let it come to me. I was super peaceful and full of joy. Like I'm starting to think about the person I want to be also in that. So I get real specific about those outcomes as well. And then have some specific like trips I've taken, and we've purchased a beach condo because I really want a place on the ocean that I could just go to. Like that's where I want to go write my next book. That kind of stuff would come up for me in my 3 year vision.
I love it. Oh, so good. All right. So we're running a little short on time. So I want to get to the B, E, and L. Like, can you run through those kind of quick
Yeah,
for
I'll
me?
just give you a high level overview. I'll give you a high level overview. So you start with the R and the E. You're dreaming again. You're establishing the outcomes. But then we get to some of what we talked about earlier. The B is break the negative thoughts, habits, and patterns that are holding you back. And so this is where we do what I call an inner story audit. We talked about that loud default narrative versus the quiet, still small voice that's inside
Yeah.
of you. So
So good.
that's an important one there. Before we add any new habits, like you got to undo the old code. So that's the B. There's some cool exercises there. The second E is to engage in rebellious new thoughts and habits. And so this is where you start to do different stuff. I talk about in the book as the life change formula, which I think believe it's a 4-step formula. It's believe, think, feel, do. So you have to change your beliefs, which leads to new thoughts, which leads to new feelings,
Mm.
which leads to new actions. And a lot of times people try to change the action first to change your feeling. And that's some like state changing stuff that can be useful in the short term. I totally get it. Like if you're really pissed off, like smile for a minute and a half, like, and it'll change how you feel on a short term level. But long term life change happens by belief change. And you're
Mhm.
thinking about different thoughts all the time. And then you're feeling different feelings because of those thoughts. And you start to do different things. And so I walk you through some strategies there of how to prime and protect your day, something I call goal funnels of like how do you achieve those big goals and break it up in a way that is meaningful on a day-to-day level. And then the L, the final step, and this is the hardest one for me, Rebecca, is let go. It's let go of other people's opinions and outcomes, which is
Yeah.
interesting because we established outcomes earlier. And in the end, you have to let go of those outcomes because the outcomes give you a destination to move towards. But then you and I, we can't control the future. Things aren't going to go the way we expect. So you got to hold them loosely. And I think John Gordon has this great line of he wants you to focus on the process. I think it's in his book, The Carpenter, but he talks about it a lot. Focus on the process, not the outcome. He said, if you love the process, you will love what the process produces. And one of the things I'm trying to learn from John is to be more process focused, like my daily actions, as opposed to the outcome. And I'm very much an outcome driven person. So letting go of the outcomes is part of how you live in peace when things are a bit messier than you'd like them to be in real life.
Mm.
And then two, letting go of other people's opinions. And this is where I help people in the book create your own life values or your family values so that you can be anchored to like, what do we actually care about as a family or as an individual? Because other people are going to have their thoughts and opinions, and you have to be pretty certain about what yours are.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And I always say, like, the people who are your authentic circle, they're gonna love you. They're gonna support you. They're gonna be your people. And everybody else is whatever. I always say, stop trying to make not your people your people.
It's hard. It's pointless. Yeah.
But some people are just not your people, and that's okay. I always say, wish them well, but over there.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
So this is so great. Where can people learn more about you? Or but what before I get to that, actually, what would be a final thought? What's a final thing? What's something that you really live by?
Yeah, man, I would say outside of things you can't control, and I'll admit there are people and things you can't control, outside of those, which I don't think are as much as you think. I think there's more control we have more control than we think. I think the disappointments in life come from living out of alignment with the way we're designed.
Hmm.
If if I could beat anything into your head today, it would be you were designed a very specific way, and part of why you're frustrated in one or all six of those core areas of life is because you're trying to live out of alignment with the way you're wired. It might be a great way that someone else is wired and you're copying or you're mimicking or it's subconscious or someone told you to be this way, but it's going to be frustrating until you decide to figure out who you are, live in alignment with that. And I believe at the core of that alignment, you're going to get three wonderful things. You're going to get success, however you define that. You're going to get satisfaction, which is not the same as success. You could be successful and not satisfied. And you're going to be of service to people. You're going to have the most impact in the areas that you want to have impact if you find your uniqueness at the white hot center of those three S's and live in alignment with the way you're designed.
Hmm. So good. And the other thing a bit about when you were talking about outcomes, I was thinking about how you don't get your goals, you get your standards, right?
Mm,
As far as how people treat you and the things that
good.
you expect in your life too, right? If you have a standard for yourself, you have outcomes that you are defining for yourself, you'll get them.
I love that.
Yeah. So your book is, I'm assuming, going to be available everywhere.
Yep, available right now. Depending on when you listen to it, pre-order. It's available. Go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. If you go to therebelbook.com, wherever you decide to pre-order the book or purchase the book, you can bring your receipt there. I got a bunch of bonuses. John and I did a video masterclass teaching through the book because he wrote the foreword to it, and it was is very instrumental in my mind in the creation of this book and the inspiration. Also, some of the exercises that we talked about, I pulled all the best exercises out of the book and put them into a journal that you can download instantly and start working through those exercises and journal prompts today, even before you get your hands on the book. But that's all available for free if you pre-order the book anywhere, but take your receipt to therebelbook.com.
Perfect. And where can people follow you, find you, all that good stuff?
Yeah, on Instagram is mostly where I hang out, is at the Graham Cochran. Otherwise, the Graham Cochran Show, wherever you get your podcasts, or grahamcochran.com.
Love it. Go check it out. Go get his book. Go follow him. Such good stuff. Make sure you do. And we'll have links to everywhere, everything in the notes too. Thank you, Graham. You're
Thank you, Rebecca. This is
amazing.
awesome. Oh, you're amazing. I'm so excited to continue to support you on your journey, even if you're not writing another book quite yet. Take that break,
I
enjoy it. But then when your next
will.
book does come out, I'm excited for that one, whatever it is.
Oh, thank you. So good. All right. Go check it out. Can't wait. Shopify helps millions sell billions around the world through their digital courses, through their digital products at the touch of a button on their smartphones, on social media, however they want, including me at shop.rebeccazung.com. You can access your store from all over the world, just the touch of a button from your smartphones. Start accepting payments. Everything you need to sell online, manage orders, and develop relationships in one place and look fabulous doing it. Shopify is the commerce platform that is revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide, including my own, at shop.rebeccazung.com. So right now, what you need to do is sign up for a $1 a month trial period at shopify.com/bestlife, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/bestlife to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bestlife. Americans spend up to 90% of their time indoors and take 20,000 breaths a day. Yet, according to the EPA, indoor air is actually more polluted than outdoor air. And in fact, 100 times more polluted than outdoor air. In fact, it's responsible for up to 7 million premature deaths annually. And I know for us, we have had issues with asthma. My daughter has struggled with asthma. And that's why we're so excited to find Air Doctor. Air Doctor has captured the attention of huge media outlets such as CNN, Money, ABC, and more. And it filters out 99.9% of dangerous contaminants and allergens such as pollen, pet dander, dust mites, and mold, and even bacteria and viruses. So your lungs don't have to do all of that extra work. So right now, Air Doctor also comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you don't love it, you just send it back for a refund minus shipping. So head to airdoctorpro.com and use the promo code Your Best Life, and depending on the model, you receive up to 39% off and up to $300 off. Exclusive to podcast customers, you'll also receive a 3-year warranty on any unit, which is an additional $84 value. Lock in this special offer by going to AIRDOCTORPRO.com and use the promo code Your Best Life.